Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for Insightful Accountants QB Talks webinar, Creating a Profitable Firm Using the Buddy System. Thanks to our presenter, Liz Scott, for sharing her insights on pricing, practice growth, and the Buddy System. And lastly, thank you to our sponsor, Rewind. Rewind Backups protects the critical data which runs your and your clients' businesses. Online accounting software products don't automatically save your transactions and files if deleted. Rewind Backups is the undo button for your online accounting software, automatically saving and restoring the latest version of your books. As of March 2022, Rewind Backups are available for QuickBooks Online, Shopify, Shopify Plus, GitHub, Trello, Microsoft 365, and BigCommerce, with a dozen other platforms currently in beta. I do have a quick poll before we get too deep into this that I do want to post. We're kind of cheating on you a little bit. It's 4 questions in one poll, but I'm going to call it one poll. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing, I'm going to share this poll here if I can get it pulled up, and then get you quickly answer that, and then we can dive right into our program after I introduce Liz. Is that poll showing? There we go. Need some background music? Anyone? Liz, you have some background music? The Jeopardy theme song, but then we might we'll get like a trademark infringement or something. So we're going to hold off on that, or copyright infringement on that. So I'm going to hold this open for about another 5 or 7 seconds here. If anybody else wants to participate, please do. Otherwise, we will get this shut down in about 3, 2, and 1. All right. Get my other screen here. Sorry about this. So, all right. So Liz Scott is today's speaker. And if you don't know Liz, she is the CEO of Accounting Lifeline, the co-host of the Happy Hour. She is Insightful Accountants QBO contributing editor. She is an Intuit Advanced Certified QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor, a member of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network, and an international speaker and trainer. Liz, thanks for joining us. I've got a couple of housekeeping items too before I turn this over to you. One, we do not offer CPE for QB Talks. If you would like to see us offer CPE in the future, put that down in the chat and let me know. If you have any questions, put those in the chat or in the questions panel as well. We will have a link to the recording sent to you within about 24 hours. You should get it probably 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And the slides will be in the chat if they're not there already. If not, I will get them in there if we haven't already put them in. And then last but not least, we do have a virtual conference coming up May 18th and 19th. It's free. It's a half day on the 18th and half day on the 19th. It's called Future Forward, and a link for that will also be in the chat. So without further delay, I'd like to turn the show over to Liz. Liz, thank you so much. And for all of our guests in attendance, thank you for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a nice introduction, and it's always a joy to be here. So I am going to flip over to our agenda and going to share what we will be covering today. For many of you here, we do our own invoicing, or we have a solution that we use for invoicing. But one of the concepts that we're constantly trying to, evolve and to put in place some best practices is pricing. So how do you price? How do you invoice? How do you check in with somebody? Like, that's my favorite part. So the buddy system for me is really, really important. I'll share with you some of my experiences that I've had whenever I do check in with a buddy, whenever it comes to pricing and engagement. That's always fun feedback. And then also the types of services that you can offer. I know some of you are thinking about advisory, so what does that look like? But it doesn't have to just be advisory. There can be other things that you can add as a service offering. And then we also have setting prices for growth. This is really key. If you are a firm who wants to have team members join you, you've got to make sure that you're invoicing enough and charging enough to be able to support the team. And also any type of solutions that you have that you're paying subscriptions for each of those team members. So definitely need to think about pricing whenever you're growing. Utilizing integrations. So what kinds of tools are out there to help us for pricing? And then also solutions for thinking about how do we also streamline our invoicing process? I think that for me, it's always a challenge. Oops, I jumped right there. It's always a challenge whenever I'm thinking about how do I streamline my invoices. For me, I sometimes struggle with getting the invoicing done. I don't know if that's one of those things that you also face. Maybe the work gets done, but the invoicing doesn't. That's definitely happened in our world, which then means that we're invoicing after the fact, and there's definitely some drawbacks to that. Whenever you can have somebody help you and assist in that buddy system, this is where I think that you have the opportunity to check in with somebody and to say, what do you think about my pricing? I've got a couple of friends that I check in with quite regularly. If it's an engagement that's maybe a little different than what I've been doing, or maybe it's an engagement that I haven't offered that service in a while, I will check in with my group and I'll network and I'll say, what are you charging? And am I charging enough for this engagement? And what we've decided is, with my friends that we do that, we end up going sometimes with always the highest price. So if I'm pricing an engagement, it's sometimes difficult to price yourself. And I know that that's not what we're doing whenever we're creating invoicing and we're pricing, but I'll share with you, that's sometimes how I feel, that it's a personal thing and that I'm pricing me, which is not the truth. We are pricing services that our clients have came to us and they're asking for. So if you can take the you part out of it, then you're able to look at the pricing and you're able to start creating fair invoicing. So whenever my friends look at my prices, they often say, well, I was thinking about X, and it might be, we might be talking about doing a setup. You know, yesterday on the, we were talking about Ignition, and there's templates inside of Ignition for pricing. And we set the pricing at $750 for setups, because there's the chart of accounts to go through. There's, are they going to have products and services? So making sure that you're pricing even the setup of an engagement is really key. So don't give some of those services away. If you're not sure if you're pricing correctly, definitely check in with your buddies, because they're going to give you some feedback. Service offerings, this is another one that, you know, whenever you're thinking about the various service offerings that you have, we have bookkeeping service offerings that a lot of us here on this call, I would say, probably are doing for your clients. So if I'm thinking about the majority of us in our industry, we might be full charge services. So we're offering everything from a full suite of solutions, from getting started, so maybe that setup piece, to also working in the daily practice. So how do you go through the motions of maybe using QuickBooks, or what is their workflow? Maybe they need help with creating that workflow, but then you've also got to train. So if I'm thinking about everything that's included inside of bookkeeping, it's really nice to break down each piece of that, because there's resources that are included inside of each part of that invoice. And bookkeeping, you know, that term has grown significantly over the last 5 years. It's now starting to encompass more than just transactions. There's now things that are being included inside of bookkeeping that is additional services that maybe you're offering some advice. Maybe you're giving some input as to, this is a big one. Oftentimes, I don't think people think about this as being, you know, advice or services or coaching that you could charge for. But we had a client that while reviewing the monthly reports with them, we would tell them how much had they spent on payroll, and looking at the percentage of income that they had received, were they spending too much on payroll? because this particular client, their payroll was more than half of their expenses. And so payroll was an area that we needed to make sure we monitored. Those were additional services that we offered. And it became actually one of those meetings that instead of just reviewing the financial statements as a whole for, do we need to categorize a transaction? Instead, we moved into this conversation about what are we seeing and the trends. So another type of service offering is doing add-ons. So sales tax and payroll and any type of industry niche. It was really not intentional, but we ended up serving the e-commerce community because we saw a lack of where we could refer our e-commerce clients probably about 7 years ago. And so we thought, well, we're already serving these clients. Maybe they had a second or third business and now they moved into that e-commerce spot. So we had that relationship with them and we decided to start diving more into e-commerce. And the more that we learned, the more that we realized we didn't know. And so we just kept on growing and growing our knowledge base to the point that it was like, this is now an area of specialty. So we ended up niching in e-commerce, not intentionally, but it was definitely an area where we had fun. So maybe you've got some type of experience like that. It might be restaurants or whatever. It might be construction. That's another one that a lot of our peers dive into deeply. But those are areas that you become experts. You can start talking about, food costs if you're in the restaurant. You can start talking about, one of the things I didn't know previously in the restaurant industry is there's grades of food. So being able to have those conversations with your clients whenever you're saying, is that a grade A steak or is that a grade C steak? And you're doing different things in order to make it taste better like a grade A steak would. So those costs that are associated with those types of industries, you're able to speak to, and that always creates excitement and a place of trust whenever you're able to talk in terms that your client thinks. So they think about, how much does that lettuce cost? Cleanup. Oh my gosh, I don't know how many of you out there price a cleanup and then later on you go, oh my gosh, I wish I had have, maybe priced larger. Whenever I'm thinking about a cleanup, one of my really good friends, and I would say it probably happened at a conference. I think we were sitting at lunch and we were at a round table and we were talking about cleanup and all of the things that were involved in cleanup, all of the different accounts that you have to look at, loan balances, requesting loan balance sheets from your clients, talking about a loan folio. What's a loan folio? Talking about, all of these different things created a lot of back and forth work. It wasn't even so much the doing the work, it was the communication that we had failed to price. And that's so much time that's involved inside of that back and forth communication that whenever we're pricing a cleanup engagement, our rule of thumb started becoming ×3. So if we had a price in our head of what we thought that cleanup would cost, we started timesing it by 3. And I can tell you, we started off by saying, oh, we'll refund the difference. We stopped saying that because then it turned into, well, once you clean up, then you've got to explain why you cleaned it up this way and what did that affect? And, really, if you're doing cleanups, the best practice is to keep notes of what did you clean up and an audit log of sorts to be able to say, if there was an audit and something needed to be reviewed again, what did you do inside of that file, that QuickBooks file, because that's where I live is in QuickBooks, but what did you do inside of that QuickBooks file that might raise an eyebrow later? Did you have a client who maybe had multiple AR accounts and they had lots of sub accounts and you migrated them over to QuickBooks where really you can just have one? And you needed to merge all of those? That's a real scenario that we've experienced. And we wanted to make sure that we had notes of the progress just in case somebody came back through later and needed to be able to pick apart what had happened and provide some answers. Advisory. I know some of you are thinking about budgets and forecasts and reportings. That is a part of advisory. It's whether it's something that you call bookkeeping and then add-ons, or you call it, you just say I'm doing advisory services that you add on after you do the end of month accounting, whatever it is. Whenever you're thinking about creating those budgets, there's some really nice templates that you can create inside of QuickBooks Online. And those budgeting templates, those are conversations to be able to educate on. So you can go through QuickBooks and you can have these budgets. And what we do is we'll pull up the budget, and we might start off a budget by creating it in a looking at prior periods and just copying those. And because you can have unlimited budgets in QuickBooks, we might create a budget of budgets. To me, are worst case scenario. So we might create a budget that would be the worst case scenario if all of your hopeful dreams of selling additional services didn't work out. What amount of money do you need to survive? And that would be one type of budget that we create. The other thing that we create is more of like a forecasting type thoughts, being able to say, what would you like the future to look like? And so you can still use budgets in QuickBooks to kind of create a sort of forecasting to be able to say, I'd love to be able to have these additional services. This is what that revenue would look like. Here's what that additional team member would look like. And so you can go through QuickBooks and you can use that budgeting area in multiple ways. And, even if you're having monthly advisory kinds of conversations, you may never move off of the budgets versus actual area. That may be the repeat of your advisory services every single month, because you're talking through the actual numbers and the hopeful numbers that maybe that client needs to be able to meet some financial goals. Reporting, I would not be surprised if lots of you here are experiencing the same thing, but clients don't always know how to talk through reports. And they don't always understand whenever you're saying balance sheet versus profit and loss. That is a concept that they didn't go to school to, most often, they didn't go to school to study. And so being able to explain to them the difference, where did your income go? So they go to look at their profit and loss report, they're looking at that net income number, and they're like, it can't possibly be true. But then you flip over to the balance sheet and you're like, well, you had all that credit card debt, and good news, you paid off a lot of that credit card debt, or you had vehicles and you paid off those vehicle loans. So being able to talk through those reports helps to educate your clients. And every single time that you do that, there's aha moments. Let's see. I want to make sure that I'm answering some of the questions in here. So Sandra, you asked a question about which CRM do we use? I don't use a true CRM. We've used several different solutions. The one that we are currently using right now is ClickUp, and we do some of our CRM tracking inside of ClickUp. So being able to, I skipped something, no I didn't. Being able to think about integrations. You've got accounts payable. I'm just thinking of some of the big ones. You've got integrations that maybe you want to pull in payroll. So you've got a solution that maybe is not inside of the QuickBooks Online program software itself, but you've got a plugin that you're using. Another thing that we offer is training. And this would be, I'm curious, so if you want to throw it in chat, you totally can. One of the things that we do is we like it whenever our clients are using QuickBooks too. So a lot of our clients, I would say 90% of our clients are in QuickBooks Online. And the reason for that is we like to have that conversation. And so it's very normal for us to do a client engagement where they come to us as a new client, we do cleanup with them, and then we immediately move over into training. And the reason for that is we want to prevent the next year from them having another cleanup scenario. So we move into best practices. How do you distinguish the difference between an expense and a bill? Or how do you make sure, this is huge, how do you make sure that you batch the deposits in order to match the bank statements? Merchant services, because e-commerce is a thing in our world, making sure that the merchant fees are recorded. Sometimes you've got clients who are just recording the deposits as their sales, but you're missing out on that piece that was carved out, that was your merchant fees. And it's good to pay attention to how much did you spend on processing fees, because that can, it can surprise you, especially whenever you're using a solution that has a lot of additional cost. Shopify, Amazon, they both have some marketing that's included in there. So we want to make sure that we're tracking all of those different components. There is a PowerPoint. You should be able to see the slides in chat. I think that they were put in there, Miriam. What do we use for practice management? So ClickUp, again, so that's what we use for being able to control our workflows and be able to make sure that we're going through and clicking on tasking off each of those check marks next to each of those tasks for us, and then be able to have communication back and forth. So let me see, it looks like there's a couple more in here. Oh, thank you. It looks like Gary just dropped in that PDF. Thank you, Gary. And then, we were talking about the accounting web that's coming up. So if you're going to that, I'm curious. So it looks like Jonathan and I will be there. Whoop, whoop. Whenever we're thinking about setting prices for growth, this is a thing that whenever you're considering adding team members, so maybe you're a firm of one and you want to double the size of your business by hiring another person, you've got to think about how much is that other person going to cost. For many of us, the firm is your source of income, but if you're going to be adding a team member, you need to make sure that you're thinking about the team member source of income too. So whenever you're pricing engagements, you can't price them too cheap. Let's see, I have a cute little slide right here. So pricing clients too cheap means that you don't have enough funds to be able to have this new team member. And then at that point, you're taken out of your pocket maybe. So you want to make sure that you're looking at your engagements from the viewpoint of what is it that I'm trying to accomplish. So maybe you want to create your own budgets and forecasts inside of your own firm to say, how much do I need? And how am I going to get there? And am I adding another team member? Maybe you're somebody who's on the call today and you've got 10 team members, but you're wanting to double that for next year. That's the thing that you've got to decide is how are you going to have enough revenue to be able to double the size of your team? And it's funny because I think that so many of us give great advice to our clients, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that we take that advice. And it's because this thought of how do I price myself or how do I stay competitive? And this is something that works in a way that maybe you don't think of. So if you're thinking about how do you increase your prices, it's this piece of being able to create enough time to have those kinds of client conversations around budgets, around reports. Really and truly, so much of what we do is back office that our clients don't understand. They know they need us, but they don't quite understand why they need us. They just know that they do. They can't do it on their own. But then being able to have that conversation with them about what's happening in their books, that's where you have those aha moments. That's where your clients really start to come to you and say, I've been thinking about buying such and such thing, and you can have that conversation. Funny story. So years ago, I had a client who asked, can I buy, it was a grill that they wanted to buy and put one of those wraps around it for advertising. And so we had that conversation and he wanted to take it around with him and be able to actually go to different sites in the parking lot and football games and, all these different kinds of things for advertising. And so we talked about this conversation that he wanted to buy this grill. Never in my wildest dreams would I ever have expected this client to spend $27,000 on a grill. Didn't know they made those. Didn't know that was possible. So being able to have those conversations, because this was all an email, right? So I didn't get a chance to actually talk through, what are you thinking about buying and what does this actually look like? Well, I would have been able to hear it has a TV that goes up and down, and it has this speaker system, and it has these mega lights, and it does different things. Like, we would have had that conversation that $27,000 on a grill is not exactly the idea that I had in mind for this grill. I got my little sad face here because it's a sad wallet. I don't even carry cash anymore, so this is a hypothetical wallet. But with looking inside of your bank account or your empty wallets and thinking about hiring these team members, this is where you want to make sure that you're taking care of those people. When I started going to the mindset of, I'm not pricing me any longer. What I'm pricing are the services that we offer as a whole, and part of the whole is the team. And so if I'm pricing cheap, I'm shorting these other people that are part of my team, because now they're not going to get to be paid what they're worth. That's not fair. And it also, it stifles you to not be able to move to where you can hire, where you can pull in more help. So it creates this scenario, if you're not pricing, where you've got frustration because everybody's overloaded. And if you're thinking about a strategy of how do you get to that place where you can afford to hire those people, I would say the best place to start is by thinking about, what are you doing with your clients? So how are you helping your clients? Maybe you need to look at those services. We had scope creep big time with some of our engagements. We didn't expect to have all these additional services. So we went back through and we started looking at what things are being performed that we didn't anticipate. So for us, an example is we do a lot of training in our firm, but what happens whenever those clients need to come back and they need support? So they've got little questions here, little questions there. And, it would just be so easy to pick up a Zoom call and to say, oh, just 15 minutes, let me go fix that. But that teaches bad behavior on both parts. And so that's something that, I had to take ownership with, is even if I'm creating a scenario where I can just hop on a call for a short 15 minutes, I now am cheating my team because I'm giving away part of my time. So part of the resources that I have that are limited, I'm giving those away and I'm not charging for it. So, most of the time we're not doing it intentionally, but it's definitely a component of growth and being able to be able to price and make sure that you don't have this next part right here. So burned out employees, bad client experience. Oh yeah. So loss of customers. If you're not able to serve those customers, you're definitely going to have a loss. I mean, why wouldn't they leave you? Because they're being underserved. I often say, as far as our industry goes, when a client comes to us, they usually don't leave. The only time that I see clients leaving are their businesses close. And of course, there's been more of those recently than normal, but or we're just not doing a good job and they're going to somebody else. So being able to take care of clients and make sure that you're building in enough dollars to be able to support their needs is definitely key. And in that scenario that I was just sharing with training, one of the options would be to either take your training and create a price that has support built into it. And if that's an option, then that would be definitely a key to be able to think about how many different times might I need to support that client. And then you could kind of land on a price. The other option would be to have them charge or be charged for the support that's offered whenever they need support. So as needed types of support. I've got friends that do subscription for support. And so they offer subscriptions to support, and it has so many hours built into it. And it's being able to hop on the call and go over any type of areas. Maybe they've got a vendor credit or whatever that they get stuck in. But the key here is definitely don't sell yourself short, don't sell your team short, and create these budgets. How much money do you need to survive? That's where I'd go with my budgets. And then be able to analyze, how did we spend our dollars? Where did they go? Was it unexpected? Being able to go and look at some of the expenses. Here's a really cool one that we didn't think about is, and we have a buddy who's also done this exact same thing. We said, we want to create an environment where everybody kind of works part-time. So not a full-time environment at all. Well, then you have more and more team members that you start to hire. Well, that doesn't mean that they're sharing subscriptions. Now that means that you have more team members and more subscriptions. And if we had hired maybe somebody who was more full-time, we would have only had one subscription. So that's just an aha moment that we experienced that we didn't analyze first, we didn't think about first, but I'm just kind of sharing some of the things that we've learned along the way. Which is why, reaching out to your buddies, that's definitely, I would recommend being able to touch base with buddies, get their feedback, negotiating prices with existing customers, and being able to look at what are you doing right now with your current prices? Do you have limited human resources? And you need to be able to think about capacity. Are you doing anything? I know we were throwing into chat some of the CRM solutions that are being used. Inside of your CRM, are you also, workflow, are you also building in capacity? Whenever you think about bank feeds, or if you think about reconciliation, or you think about those support calls, are you building in how much time that you think that it's going to take? Because time is a resource. And I'm not saying at all that we should move over to hourly billing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that as a human, there's only so much of me mentally that I can share with a client. And there's only so much of me with time that I can share with a client. So that is a human limited resource. So, having those conversations with clients, the biggest thing that I hear is, oh, well, I've been pricing this way for a while, and it would surprise them if I change my prices. What's more surprising to your client is that you haven't changed your prices. They know there is more that you're doing for them in the last several years than before. And, being able to anticipate and increase a price. I don't know how many here have increased their prices since 2020, but, we definitely did. We needed to make sure that never before had we been asked as many HR questions. That hasn't really gone away, because once that door for asking HR questions opened, our clients they're coming back to us and asking us questions about hiring and firing best practices, employee handbooks, notices. There's all kinds of things related to employee questions that are HR that we didn't have a whole lot of before, but we definitely have continued to have. So our clients are not surprised whenever we go to them and we start talking about needing to increase prices. The other thing is if you're in that niche area, maybe intentionally, unintentionally, either way, but a lot in a specific area because you've worked in that area quite a bit, then it's appropriate for you to charge more for that. It's appropriate for you to say, we are experts in this area. It's not going to require us to go Google something online. We already know the answer to this. So you should absolutely be charged for that knowledge that you have, not just the time that you're spending with that client in that moment. Integrations for growth. So there was some questions in here that were related to CRM and workflow tools. And I'm going to go ahead and share what we use when we're thinking about integrations for growth. The tool that we're using right now for our workflow is ClickUp. ClickUp has got some templates if you wanted to go and play around with ClickUp to be able to say, they've got this bookkeeping firm template, and it talks about, how do you client onboard and monthly action items. And so here would be an example of monthly action items. You process payroll, you are going to pull the balance sheet and the profit and loss, you're going to reconcile. So all of those tasks, then you can go and you can track. The other thing that's inside of ClickUp is you can have time tracking. We also have used Monday, and Monday is a solution that, it's very user friendly and it's visually appealing to me. But I can tell you, as far as my team struggled with, it was too broad. They really needed to be able to have, where's my workflow? Where can I see all of my taskings and my status? And that's why ClickUp has worked better for the team. But Monday is where we definitely, in fact, I still have a Monday account because I do really still like it. And it is easy to use. It's easy to adopt. And they've got templates in there too. Carbon is another one that, we also call it IPM. So if you're using the Intuit practice management solution, it's powered by Carbon. This is a really great tool, and it's got that piece that we were talking about, budgets. It's got that piece in there that's built in to be able to say, how much time do you think that it takes on average to reconcile? So you can go and plug that in, and then you can see your actual time spent in that task and how does that compare. There's a formula piece in there, so you can actually track that inside of Carbon. Again, Carbon's got lots of templates that you can use. You can download the templates, you can import them and change them. What's cool about the templates that Carbon has is because Carbon is designed for bookkeeping and accounting firms, the thing that it's got built in is it understands that there's different roles. So there might be the document collector role. We try to do as much automation of that as we possibly can, but there's still a piece of it that you have to say is human, and there's time that's involved in that. So maybe it's somebody's duty to be the document collector, and then maybe it's somebody's duty to do the bookkeeping, and then it's somebody else's responsibility to do the financial review or create those financial statements, or maybe have those client meetings. So Carbon has got built into it roles. So it's really easy to be able to say who in this, in work environment is inside of this role. And so you can assign that role to those different team members pretty easily if you're using those Carbon templates. Thinking about integrations for growth, I was talking about documents being a huge area that we have to spend quite a bit of time. We have moved over to LedgerSync. I know some of you might have been HubDoc fans or are still HubDoc fans, but for us, we are QuickBooks based, and we needed a solution that we knew would be able to integrate with QuickBooks. And so LedgerSync has been our solution to be able to go and fetch documents. So it will fetch bank statements, it will fetch credit card statements. The other thing that's pretty cool about it is you can see we've got all of the transactions that are also listed. So not only can you go and fetch the statement, but it also has a piece inside of LedgerSync that's for that specific client that's got all of the various transactions. So if you needed to be able to come over here and look at a transaction, dig into it, you actually could. The other piece of LedgerSync is if you needed to export out of here. Maybe you've got a bank that wouldn't, for whatever reason, connect to QuickBooks. You could come over into LedgerSync, download those transactions, and then upload them into QuickBooks because they've got a .qbo option, they've got a CSV option. So there's lots of options over here. And then you can do some automation because, automation is a big part of saving time, but you can also automate saving those documents. So if you've got a particular folder that you want to save it to, for us, Box, you can map those transactions to Box. And they also have this new piece where you can fetch check images, and we haven't needed that. So for us, thank goodness, we have trained our clients well, and most of them do not use any type of handwritten check. And so if they do, it's pretty rare. But those who maybe you've got clients who are using handwritten checks for an extra fee, I'm not really sure what the extra fee is since we haven't had to use it. They will also go and fetch those check images if they're available. Zapier. This is another one that we use inside of our firm. So we might have an email that comes in, and that email needs to be part of our CRM. So we're using ClickUp for our CRM right now. And we might want to say that email that comes in, if we tag it and we say, you know, a possible client, then we could tag it with that label, and then Zapier is going to pick up because they know that there's been an action, and it will trigger a reaction, which then would say email, it had a tag on it, and now over in our CRM, it's going to create that client name. It might, we might want to link to the email address, and so you can use Zapier for a lot of your workflow automation as well. Uipath, this one's a new one that I hadn't had on my radar, but Uipath is pretty cool. So it's like Zapier, but on steroids. So it's got in their workflows built, and you can start to create automations also in UI. So Uipath is very similar to Zapier. It's just another one of those tools. Another tool that we use for being able to do some automation and innovation is AutoReview. I don't know if you've used AutoReview yet in the browser, but it's awesome. So AutoReview is a tool that's great for going through at the end of the month and looking at all of the transactions, and you can say, are they categorized correctly? AutoReview has got a piece in it where it can go and it can look at this vendor was mostly used maybe in this area previously, and now it's being used in a different area. Now you've got a different account attached to that vendor. So it's pretty cool to be able to use AutoReview for cleanups, pricing engagements, month-end review. So it's got lots of cool stuff that's built into it. And then now this new browser integrations, this extension allows you to work inside of QuickBooks Online, not even open up AutoReview, but still have access to all of the AutoReview features. Let's see. Yes, these slides are available. I think a couple chats back, you'll see the PDF in there. LedgerSync is costly. So Kim, in my experience, it's $12 a client, and it doesn't matter how many accounts that we're syncing to that client. So for us, it's saving us a lot of human time. Being able to switch gears. You know, we started tracking how much time does it take to go from one task in a client to switching gears, closing that client, opening up a new client, going and getting all of the credentials to log in and download that bank statement. And oh yeah, they updated their password, you know, all kinds of sometimes frustrating things that can happen. And so for us, what we started to do was pull in all of those statements in one place. And that way we created some more useful workflows for us. LiveFlow is cool. So LiveFlow is an integration that you can use for additional services. What it does is LiveFlow sits on top of QuickBooks Online, and it can export reports. So you can choose which reports to export. LiveFlow's got some templates that are there, and report options. And so you pull in those reports, and each of those areas that it pulls in on your report is a formula. So if you needed to be able to dig into the details, you definitely could. There's a deep dive option, a lookup option inside of LiveFlow. The other thing that you can do is if you wanted to create some variances. So we were talking about, you know, budgets versus actual. So you could create those in LiveFlow. And the cool thing about it being inside of Google Sheets is that it can update automatically for you every hour. So if there's a change in the financials, LiveFlow is going to automatically be updated as long as you have on there what your update schedule is. Quevinci has got some really cool features too. So if you're somebody who really digs Excel, then I would say Quevinci would be right up your alley, because you're able to work inside of Excel. They've got tons. They also have tons of templates that are inside of these different tabs inside of a workbook in Excel. And you're able to take those and create pivot tables, graphs and charts. And again, you've got the data there to be able to do things with it. So be able to create some type of analysis. Let's see, it looks like there's, can you use LiveFlow with QuickBooks Desktop? Because it's pulling in the, because it is pulling in the data from QuickBooks Online, it's only able to attach to the API inside of QuickBooks Online. So LiveFlow would not be the tool to use if you're in desktop. I would say definitely go with Quevinci. With that being said, Quevinci definitely works with QuickBooks Online as well. So if you're working in QuickBooks Online, you can do the same thing there, be able to have your reports. You don't have to export into Excel. I just think that so many of us are comfortable there that that's one of the features that I really love about Quevinci. You've got the solution itself that you could stay in there and do different things, but definitely, if you're an Excel user, I would check out Quevinci. Training. So for us, we have different tools that we use for training. And one of the ones that we used a lot, and I'm going to say used, was Loom. And we would use Loom to be able to create these videos to tell our clients how to. And what we found is the client would look at it one time, and then the next time that they had the exact same question, they would ask again. So what we found is they like pictures. So we moved over to Scribe, and Scribe, the cool thing is it works off of your browser. And so you can go inside of Scribe, and it's a browser extension, and you can create what they call scribes, and it's basically clicks of each time, or screenshots of each time that you click. It can also work with tab. So if you're telling your client how to create an invoice or how to create a deposit, whatever it is that you're trying to create, you can go into their QuickBooks file and you can show them, here's the workflow, here's all the clicks. And the other thing that's cool about it is it will grab the words on that screen. So wherever you clicked, it will put those words inside of the click field. You can kind of see it right here where it says click here. And so it's able to tell you what all fields were used whenever you're going through and creating different transactions, different screens. And it creates this visual that you don't have to watch a video, because clients don't always spend time watching those videos. So thinking about invoicing for clients, there are several solutions for invoicing. And this month has been the Insightful Accountant invoicing month for sure. And so Murph has been creating a lot of articles related to invoicing and how to effectively do that. And there's some products that he has spotlighted, which are solutions that we have used. And then there's solutions that we haven't used inside of that spotlighting. But that's the key, is looking at those articles, thinking about your own workflow, which solution fits into your workflow. Just like I was saying earlier, Monday was great, but not for our entire team. So thinking about which type of workflow do you have helps you to be able to determine what should your invoicing software look like. So do you have recurring invoices? Do you need to be able to have some type of automation around past due invoices? Do you want to be able to collect a deposit at the time that the invoice is created or an engagement is created? So all of these are things that, if you're thinking about creating invoices and using a solution, that you would definitely want to pull in. My good friend Heather, she worked on the Intuit pricing questionnaire that went out. And so one of the things that I found fascinating about the results of that questionnaire is it went out and it asked a lot of accounting and bookkeeping professionals, how do you price? And since it was, in an environment where, people felt it's confidential and they could share that information, they answered how they were pricing, and hourly billing has just continued to be on the decline year after year. The thing that I found interesting was value pricing was starting to also have a bit of a decline to it, but fixed fee ended up being the place that there is a huge amount of growth. And I think it's because it's easy to comprehend for both you and the client. So fixed fee could include all of those different services that we were talking about earlier. And those are valuable to your clients. So in a sense, you are creating value pricing. Just one of the things to consider whenever you're doing fixed pricing is you have this knowledge base, and you want to make sure that, whenever you price an engagement, you're considering the knowledge base. If you have a team, that makes your knowledge base even bigger. So now you have more people to pull from. Maybe you've got somebody who is a tax expert. That's not my area of expertise. So having somebody on my team who is dedicated to tax, that is valuable. And it would be something that I would want to consider and add to my fixed fee pricing for clients. Here's that survey that I think is pretty cool. And I'll share in chat that link because it's definitely worth going and checking out. Pricing methods for other services. So you've got billing methods, monthly bookkeeping and accounting services, catch up. So people coming to you, probably a lot of people coming to you that wanted to be able to close out their years. So that's a piece of it. Troubleshooting, that might be support that's also inside that number. QuickBooks setup, so getting started, and then training. And then also having this chart here to be able to tell you hourly billing is on this decline and fixed fee is definitely on the rise. So I think that this one in particular is interesting. And if you look at last year's comparison, it's definitely an area that has seen some significant growth. Let's see. Average hourly rate, super cool. So here we've got our prices, and I think that this is interesting. Certified bookkeepers are pricing less than bookkeepers. Not really sure what that's an indication of. Maybe I don't know, but I find that to be an interesting area. Accountants, non-CPA, so it's almost equivalent to the bookkeeper, and that's where, again, I'm going to say the bookkeepers are taking on a whole lot of roles. And then you've got EAs, and then you've got CPAs. So these are the people who responded to the survey. This is their results. And this is this right here. Let me share that. This is the survey right here. So let me put this survey in chat for those of you who want to go back through. These rates look low. Leslie, I think that's one of the things that the more responses that they have, the more that they're able to weigh in. So size of firm, I didn't go into everything that's part of that survey, but it's definitely worth, I think, taking a look at because it's got some cool information. Let's see, Leslie. Oh, so Lawrence said the same thing, that the rates look low. Part of it's based off of location too. So, if you think about somebody in California might charge way different than somebody like myself in Oklahoma. So some of it might be based on location. I would also say that's part of why you check in with stuff like this. That's part of the whole buddy system, is to be able to, most often what I find is our friends are charging too little. And, that's part of the issue, is that, not being able to charge enough for your services means that you're not able to support your staff, which means that you're not able to have the lifestyle that you want, which, it all snowballs into each other. But thinking back to invoicing, there was an article that was written about invoicing using Google Calendar. So Murph wrote an article that inside of Insightful Accountant talks about how do you create invoices utilizing Google Calendars. Some of your clients might be somebody who's really keen on creating calendar events. and they can use those events to actually create a line on your invoice for products and services. So whatever it is that they're seeing, even the notes that's on the Google Calendar, you can pull in and create invoices off of. Invoiced is another solution whenever you're thinking about invoicing. And Invoiced is, they've got a really nice dashboard. I'm going to say this is probably going to be for somebody who does more volume in invoicing. So being able to have a solution that would be able to handle collections, to be able to have some automation built into it, Invoice is going to be more robust for something like that. I haven't used this one. I don't know if there's anybody in here who has, but this one also looks like it's got a whole lot of robust features. So it's got dashboards and analytics and insights to be able to go and look at AR. I definitely like the graphics that are here. You know, anytime that I'm creating charts for clients, they appreciate those visuals. So I like the look of this solution. Gavati, that's the way that I'm going to say it. Recur 360, this is another invoicing solution. This is the most recent solution that Murph has outlined in his series of invoicing articles. Recur 360, the times that we've found the most value in this solution are clients who have subscriptions. So you know, you could do it from anything from monitoring services, so alarm services that needed to be renewed every month. They have a really nice feature in there where it can send out alerts that says, you know, invoicing is happening monthly. Do you want to send out the receipt of that or not? But the other piece that they can do is if the card is about to expire, they can send out a notification right away. And so they're proactively asking for a new card. If you've got a declined card, then they also have a piece in there that's going to send out an alert. So Recur 360 is definitely, the name speaks for it. So it's designed for subscription-based type clients. Let's see, let me look at, oh, thank you for putting in the link to the Google Calendar article. And James is saying next year subscription value pricing 2.0. So yeah, definitely. I mean, that applies to even us. So I would tell you that pricing your support is something that a lot of people have moved to subscription based, and having some type of, you know, one of the offerings that we have whenever we're thinking about support is we'll throw in there and we'll say, is there 90 days of support that's needed? And there's a price for that. So they can subscribe to that 90 days worth of support if it's a brand new conversion, or if it's new to the QuickBooks file is new to being cleaned up, and we want to make sure that everybody's got training. But then also training is easy when you're together. When you're alone, that's whenever those moments happen that you're like, oh, I don't know how to handle this. So having support built in is definitely key. But today, the buddy system was a big part of being able to talk out with a friend up here. How are you billing? What's your prices? I would say share those. You know, there's no reason we're charging a lot of us the same. If you want to use even that survey to have as a starting spot for, are you charging that amount? Or like many of you here, which makes me super happy, are you charging more than what the survey is saying? And if so, give yourself a pat on the back, and you may want to keep on growing that number, because I think that as a whole, our industry underbills for sure. So the more that we stick together and the more that we start to give each other feedback on pricing, I believe that together that would be something that we could certainly change. I'm going to look to see if there is another question in here. So Kim was saying better than HubDoc. I would just say that LedgerSync is different. So we've moved over to LedgerSync for our clients. And then Karen, you're asking about being able to watch this episode later or other QB Talks episodes later. There is a recording, and I will definitely say that I believe all of those are available to watch later, and that way you would have access to that library. So thank you to Rewind for being our series sponsor today, and thank you everyone for attending today. Oh, it looks like there's a closing poll that's popped up.
Yep, just for a real quick closing poll, Liz, again, thank you as always. A tremendous amount of information. Your depth of knowledge is fascinating. So just thank you for spending some time with us here today. And again, thanks to our sponsor, Rewind, as Liz just said. And in that poll, there's two things. One, do you want to hear from Rewind? And kind of what I jotted down, if you're using some kind of cloud service, QBO especially versus and some of these other cloud services, you need the backup. Rewind can provide that for you. That's not an endorsement, they're the sponsor, but it seems to make sense to me. Liz, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, as far as using Rewind, yes. I think that making backups anytime that you're in QuickBooks and doing any type of work, yes, I think that it's a great solution because you need backups.
Yep. So we certainly, once again, we do appreciate it. We do have, just a reminder, we do have the voting open for our Top 100 Pro Advisor awards, and that will remain open. I think it's through May the 8th. Don't quote me on that, but it certainly is all over the website. You should be able to find it. Last thing, if you have any other ideas that you would like to see us covering in QB Talks, certainly reach out to Liz, reach out to me, and you will receive the recording link after this. You'll get it tomorrow. And on that, in the link, it will actually take you to our YouTube page. And the YouTube page has all of our archives on it. So all of the QB Talks plus other non-QB Talks webinars that we've done. So thank you all. Liz, thank you. I know you're going on a trip, so enjoy your trip. Have a wonderful time where you're headed. And we will see everyone very soon. Thank you.